Hello and welcome to my channel. So today's video is going to be all about whether or not Princess Louise of Great Britain had a secret child. Princess Louise was born on the 18th of March 1848 and she was the 6th child of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. At the time of her birth, revolutions were sweeping across Europe, so Queen Victoria remarked that Princess Louise would turn out to be something peculiar. Princess Louise was actually a very talented artist, but even though a career in art was not possible due to her rank in life, her mother did allow her to attend art school. At the art school, she was under the tutelage of sculptor Mary Thornycroft, and then later on she attended the National Art Training School, which is now called the Royal College of Art. Louise was a favourite of her father's, and as a child she was nicknamed Little Miss Y by the rest of her family because of her inquisitive nature. Princess Louise would campaign for health and education reform and also for women's rights. Louise's father Albert died on the 14th of December 1861 and her mother Victoria plunged the whole court into mourning. But as much as she missed her father, Princess Louise became completely fed up with the prolonged mourning. For her 17th birthday in 1865, Louise requested that the ballroom be opened for a debutante, but this was refused. So Louise went back to being bored until a year later in 1866, where she fell in love with her brother Leopold's tutor, Lieutenant Walter George Stirling. Louise would spend a lot of time with her brother and his tutor, but Walter was sacked as Leopold's tutor only a few months after he got the job. But why did Walter get sacked so suddenly? Gossip went round at the time, but a year later the gossip going round was that Louise and Walter had had a relationship and that this relationship had been a physical one and that Louise had got pregnant. But if Louise was pregnant, how did she manage to hide it? Well, luckily for Louise, fashion at the time could make baby bumps invisible. There were special pregnancy corsets and accessories like muffs and shawls could be used to cover the bump. And the latest fashion for frills and pleats and paddings and decorations could also be used to disguise a bump. Now, normally Princess Louise was not one for bows and ribbons, but in 1866 her dresses were suddenly very decorated with them. But if Princess Louise was pregnant and she was hiding her baby bump with the fashion of the time, wouldn't her dresser have noticed the baby bump? In the autumn of 1866, Queen Victoria wrote in her diary that Princess Louise no longer needed servants to help her get dressed. In the winter of 1866, Princess Louise made few public appearances, and when she did make public appearances, she rarely got out of her carriage. Also in 1866, Louise wrote a letter to a friend saying that she was feeling very down and sad. She wrote, "I sit in my room and cry. I cannot write and tell you why. There are so many things ought not to be as they are. I am expected to agree with them, yet I cannot when I know a thing to be wrong." So if Louise was pregnant, she would have given birth in either late 1866 or early 1867. And she was actually back to herself in February 1867 when she attended the state opening of Parliament. Queen Victoria, meanwhile, was writing to her friend Lady Biddulph that she dreaded Lieutenant Walter George Stirling's indiscretion. Why would she be fearing his indiscretion if Louise was not pregnant, or if there had been no relationship with Louise at all? So if Princess Louise did indeed have an illegitimate child, what became of this child? For this we look to Queen Victoria's gynaecologist, Sir Charles Locock. Naturally, if Princess Louise was with child, then Sir Charles would have been the perfect person for the Queen to turn to with help in delivering the baby. As gynaecologist to the monarch, Sir Charles's discretion was already guaranteed. He would have been really stupid to blab anything. He would have been really stupid to blab anything, as this would have meant that he would have lost his position. In 1867, Sir Charles's son Frederick moved into a flat near St James's Palace, where he married his fiancée Mary. 4 months later, they adopted a baby boy called Henry. Around the same time, Sir Charles received a visit from Lady Stirling, who was Lieutenant Stirling's mother. Now, the month that Frederick adopted Henry, he actually started to receive a very large and unexplained allowance. In 2004, Henry Lowcock's grandson, retired racing commentator Nick Lowcock, applied to the court to get permission to retrieve a sample of Henry's DNA. He wanted this sample so that it could be compared to an existing DNA sample of one of Queen Victoria's granddaughters, so to prove that his grandfather was a child of Princess Louise, but the courts turned down his request. Nick Lowcock had long been told of who his great-grandmother was, and as he grew up he also found out that his cousins had been told the same thing by their parents. Henry had obviously been telling his children that he was Princess Louise's son. And the thing is that his adopted father Frederick never actually denied this. The family actually have a gift from Queen Victoria in their possession. It is a bronze sculpture of a child that was given to Sir Charles. Henry had died in 1907 after falling from a train, and after his death a trust of nearly £60,000 was set up for his 6 children. It was a mystery about who actually set up this trust, but the family have always presumed that it was Princess Louise that done it. The Lowcock family say that Princess Louise regularly visited Henry throughout his childhood. She liked to spend time at her country home of Dordon in Kent, which was next door to a home owned by Sir Charles Lowcock. So Louise was forced to marry the son of the 9th Duke of Argyll. They had no children together, and it turned out that he was gay. But Louise would actually have lots of lovers. One was the top sculpture of the day, Joseph Edgar Buham, and it is said that he died in her arms while they were having sex. She also became rather close to her sister Beatrice's husband, though nothing happened. Now here's a weird thing. When the author Lucinda Hawksley began researching for her biography of Louise, The Mystery of Princess Louise, she found that Princess Louise's files in the Royal Archive at Windsor were closed to the public. When she tried to access the archives of the Argyll family, she was refused. And also at other archives, even archives that were in different countries, she found that any files relating to Princess Louise had been removed and sent to Windsor. Why would this have been? If Princess Louise did have an illegitimate child, why is it being hushed up? I get that back then in Victoria times, if a woman did have a child out of wedlock, then they were sort of looked down upon by society. And the thing is, even if she did have an illegitimate child, then this child and its descendants would have had no bearing on the line of succession. And there isn't really the same hush-up when male members have illegitimate children. They freely acknowledge their children that they have with their mistresses, if they want to acknowledge their children, of course. I really can't see that if Princess Louise did have an illegitimate child, why today it is being hushed up, and why all her files in the Royal Archive are kept secret and not allowed to be seen by the public. Did Princess Louise really have an illegitimate child, or is there something else going on? I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.